It's another day, only to scream into the night. Nothing ever tries to change, even if I want to realize. 'Cause I've been sitting here, same old place, taking off without the same mistake. Darling, when you go away, it won't be as simple for you.
Yo, guys, RDS here, Old Man G, back again with another transfer update show. I'm joined by the amazing Tom, the journalist one. We're going to get into our latest Manchester United transfer news and hopefully just a bit of insight on what's going on. Basically, in my opinion, the joke that is basically Manchester United Football Club. Manchester United Football Club being an absolute joke, really, I think, in the last 24, 40 hours. And we're going to talk a bit about that. But before we get into it, guys, if you are new to the channel, to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter, We As United. Smash the notification button, plays Manchester United news, and more. Follow us on Twitch as well. We're doing obviously watch-alongs as well, and so forth. So yeah, guys, we've obviously got a good show going on. We're obviously going into Manchester news. We're going to be talking about obviously Amrabat bidding coming, obviously Fabrizio coming in the last 10-15 minutes or so, saying that Manchester United are prepared to launch a bid for Amrabat. CUCURELLA, obviously, I've not really talked about that, but obviously the loan deal process, is that still sort of happening? Outgoings like Mengi, there seems to be an agreed option for him to go to, appears to be Luton Town, and obviously Beek still looking at options as well. Flops in terms of MAGUIRE and McTominay, because obviously those things have fallen through. And then hopefully towards the end we'll actually talk a bit about two things. One, we'll react to the Carabao Cup draw, because I think that United are probably going to get there. It's in the process of being done, and I think United are going to get their third round opponent in the next few minutes or so. And then if we've got enough time at the end, we'll be doing a UCL draw as well, a simulated UCL draw, because obviously the Champions League draw, the Champions draw, is going to be tomorrow. There'll be a watch along for that tomorrow. We'll be doing a simulated draw for that. So stay tuned for that as well. I think Tom is literally just back, so I'll be back in about 2 minutes, just making a phone call. So what I'll do is we'll talk briefly about the Amrabat bid before, as I wait for Tom to come back. So Fabrizio, and I'll just get this up. I'll just have a look here. Yeah. So Fabrizio that's about an hour ago. Fabrizio obviously saying Manchester United preparing also shout out in the chat as well. I see Matthew in the chat, man. Thank you so much for joining, man. I really appreciate even on DS. Big up on chat, and big up everyone who was watching. I appreciate you guys. I do. So Fabrizio saying Manchester United preparing a formal bid for Sofyan Amrabat, always been top target. No loan proposal sent to Fiorentina, just informal talks. Fiorentina could be open to loan, but obligation to buy based on conditions. Sofyan went to Manchester United since June. So initially, actually, I had in my title Amrabat and CUCURELLA loan deals, because at least for most of the day, that's what seemed to be what was being pushed. That Manchester, I think we heard reports that Nottingham Forest had actually bid 37. I don't know where Nottingham Forest are getting this money, by the way. Like, it's really weird. Like, Nottingham Forest, there have been so many teams that have been able to spend and bid this amount of money, and I don't know where it could be, just because of the fact that we spent 75 million on Højlund, 60 million on Mount, etc., compared to other teams. But I don't know where they're getting the money. considering we make more revenue than Nottingham Forest and we can't seem to be able to spend. So I don't understand. Shout out to you. Have you seen the draw? Is it the Carabao Cup draw? Yeah, that should be coming in. Who are United drawn against? I know draws are rigged. Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace at home. Okay, that's fine. Okay. We got Crystal Palace at home. Yeah, okay. So just a bit of breaking news. Obviously, I'll come back to the Amrabat thing, but the Carabao Cup draw has been done. Thank you for Kevin. I appreciate it. And Manchester United have been drawn to Crystal Palace at home in the third round of the draw. So it's against, I mean, I'm glad it was at home. If it was away at Crystal Palace, I actually would be a bit more scared because we often tend to lose at Palace for some reason. It's just difficult. Ooh, there's some interesting fights here, man. There's some interesting draws here. Where's the we'll obviously go to the side. Let's have a look. So Newcastle versus City. Newcastle versus Manchester City. City will go to St. James's Park and play Newcastle, man. So that's going to be an interesting game. That's going to be a game. And who else? Chelsea and Brighton at home. Geez, guys. I mean, Chelsea, Brighton at home, Brentford away to Arsenal. So we could be in a situation where a couple of at least half of the big teams are out already at the third on the third round. United getting Palace at home, I think, is probably we got the better deal. Palace at home, I think, will be fine. But Arsenal getting Brentford away, even Chelsea, Brighton at home, and then City at Newcastle. You never know, guys. You never know. Maybe we'll be able to retain the Carabao Cup. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe we'll be able to retain the Carabao Cup. You know. But yeah, I'm happy with that draw. Well, I say that. I still think that depends on what happens in the transfer window as well. So, yeah, thanks for back, Tom. Yeah, so obviously Fabrizio talking about going back to Amrabat. Fabrizio talking about because as I was saying, almost the entire day when I'm looking on Twitter, I've just been seeing loan deal, Nottingham Forest, etc. And then Fabrizio in the last hour basically posting actually United weren't interested in any kind of loan movement or anything like that, and actually we're preparing to make a formal bid. Now I don't know whether that has to do with the fact that Donny van der Beek looks like he might be leaving. We'll talk about later on the show, maybe to Galatasaray or somewhere else. But yeah, Tom, could you just give us a bit of insight into just this whole Amrabat bid and what's going on with that and the likelihood of Manchester United actually signing in the next 24 hours? Big up Steph in the chat, by the way. Big up Steph. Yeah.
Big up Steph. The thing really with United has been that ever since they signed Højlund, they had actually breached the FFP regulations.
Right.
But they've not actually been formalised that they've breached them based upon that they believed that they was going to make sales which was going to balance them back in line with FFP. So effectively when they bought Højlund and they paid the initial payment out, they overpaid on what the budget was supposed to be for this summer.
Fine.
Because I think in total they put the Mount, initial figure, the Onana initial figure, and the Højlund initial figure. I think it adds up to around about 148 million or something around that figure. And the budget for United had always been around 120, 130 million pound mark. So they had overstepped the budget based upon the players that they brought in. But exclusive of that, they have sold quite a few players. They've sold Anthony Elanga for the full 15 million. They've sold Dean Henderson. It's looking very likely he'll go to Crystal Palace. 15 plus 5. So, you've basically made up the money there off of those two players. And that's not exclusive of, maybe a lot of the young players that you've got rid of for bits of crash. Yeah, Fred there. So, the money's there in terms of getting players in. But the basis that United have worked upon was that towards the latter stages of the window, they wanted to get the midfielder, and that was all that they was prioritising. And that's why they wasn't necessarily rushing around and paying, late transfer odds when they could have got a player for maybe cheaper earlier in the window. And the reason being is that they had a balanced squad. They had numbers in every single position. Whereas right now, currently, they're going into the weekend to play Arsenal without a designated left back. Currently, right now, I think that's fair to say. Luke Shaw, Malacia are the mainstream players. Alvaro Fernandez looks like he's going to go to Granada on loan. So there's a situation where you need a left back being brought in. Hence, they have prioritised pursuing 3 left backs, and they've decided upon Marc CUCURELLA as the one that they want to go for. So the Amrabat deal had been not, put, I guess you could say, put on the back burner for now, while they're trying to at least get a left back because they have midfielders. That's the one thing that they've said. So in doing that, they've kind of played a balancing act because they want to get a loan deal for CUCURELLA, and then the saga that's actually come out around Amrabat, as far as I understand it, is that United had flirted with the idea that they were happy to take him on loan, but they only wanted to have an option on loan, for which Fiorentina have said absolutely not. You're either going to buy him in the end or you're not going to buy him at all. It's as simple as that. And the way that Fiorentina have looked at it is if Manchester United are serious, they'll buy him. They'll buy him either now or we can cut a loan deal where after he makes, say, 10 appearances, you're obligated to buy him for, I don't know, 35 million euros or something like that. You're obligated to buy it, which after that point, United then, if they can get that loan stretch to say, after the first, say, 6 months, and then you could get him to a situation where you get to January, whatever the FFP regulations are against United, the loan money that has been put in place to loan him for the contract until he meets the appearances, based upon the actual transfer figure that you'll pay when you're obligated to buy him, it would actually go on to next year's regulations. So effectively, United would be cleared based upon that they've cleared the books because they've sold players, but then Amrabat will go on to next year's books, essentially, because that's when they would be obligated to buy him. But it obviously depends on the appearances situation as well and what appearances Fiorentina would be happy with. The most minimal would be the better for them and the maximum would be better for United based upon the FFP regulations. So, again, it's that situation, but Manchester United are serious about getting Sofyan Amrabat, and even Fiorentina themselves have distanced the player and they've said, look, we understand your mind's elsewhere, and for us, that's not a player that we necessarily want, but we respect your decision and what you've actually done for our football club. There's not any hostility between Amrabat and Fiorentina. It is strictly business. And if they get the offer that they're looking for toward the end of the window in the final coming days, they'll take it. And, I mean, reasonably speaking, United need to really get a move on because they're negotiating on...
We have less than 40 hours.
48 hours to sign 2 players from... I would say the CUCURELLA deal is a lot harder to do than this Amrabat deal, if I'm honest, based upon that Chelsea want a massive loan figure for a player that is really only going to cover you for 2 months and then might be surplus to requirements when Shaw or Malacia comes back. So, again, like the situation is that United are haggling over the Amrabat deal based upon the left-back situation was sprung on them. It was forced on them. If they didn't have that situation, they would have taken their time with the Amrabat deal because they know the player wants to come to them. They know that they want the player, and they would have got a better deal out of it, they believe, if they would have waited maybe a bit longer in the window, because signing Amrabat now doesn't change anything. He probably would have a couple of training sessions, but he might, at the very least, make the bench. But he might not even be brought on in the Arsenal game. So there's not that priority on that signing. Whereas the CUCURELLA one, it's a big priority right now because they don't have a left back. That's the situation. Long story short. So effectively, United have put the Amrabat deal on the back burner, but now that they know that they've got Chelsea to the negotiating table and they're willing to negotiate a loan fee for CUCURELLA, they believe that they can get that player done in the next 48 hours. Signed, sealed, delivered, loan deal, agreement, whatever. And then from there, they then want to look at the Amrabat deal, which is where it's going to be a fee that they're going to have to pay at some point to buy the player. They want the player permanently, but they'd rather pay it later on because it balances their FFP regulations. Whereas Fiorentina would want the cash right here and now. So, again, like you say, there's the negotiations are obviously going to go on and everything, but as far as I'm aware, no official loan bid went in for Amrabat. It was just an idea that United had. And when they had held the talks with Fiorentina over, would you be interested in, we loan him for, say, X amount of time, and then we have an option there that we buy him, which could then turn into an obligation at some point. Fiorentina said, no, we want obligation straight out, and you can loan him, but you will be obligated to buy him, and we set the date when you're obligated to buy him based upon 5, 10, however many appearances. We set the terms, you take the player. That's how Fiorentina are playing this. And if you don't dance to our tune, you don't get the player. It's as simple as that. And United, I mean, Liverpool going after Gravenberch, that's an alternative target for United to pursue on loan. So, again, there's, situations there with United, but Liverpool wanted to pursue a permanent deal for Gravenberch. So, again, there's other situations that are happening around United. And really, if they don't get the Amrabat deal over the line, with how long, especially the player has waited for this as well.
Exactly. Since June.
I think this would, since June, exactly. I think this would be an absolute travesty if it didn't end up happening. And really, I think, based upon the noise that's being made up, and I think it's a very, noise-centric story. It's coming out every single day towards the end of the window. I think United will be busy on the final day of the window. And I think that they will get an agreement with Cucurella. I think that's a necessity. They have to get a left back, and Cucurella is the one that they want, and they know Chelsea will let him go out on loan, but for a certain fee. So you come to an agreement on that fee, and you get Cucurella in, and then if you've got the time left, you do the deal for Amrabat. But United never work on more than 2 deals at a time. So unfortunately, it might not be nice for United fans to hear this, but they are prioritising the Cucurella deal based upon they don't actually have a left back right now. Whereas right now they've got loads of midfielders that they can choose from to go to the weekend with. So that's really the difference maker between what the priorities are and the Amrabat deal in comparison to getting in another left back at this time.
Thanks, Tom. I mean, I even forgot to do my speech, my transfer chaos speech. It doesn't start because of the EFL Cup draw coming in. For those obviously coming in, breaking news, obviously, Carabao Cup draws on. Manchester United will be playing Crystal Palace at home. Some of the standout ties in that draw are City away to Newcastle, Chelsea playing Brighton at home, and Arsenal away to Brentford. So a lot of, basically that is essentially the top 6, 7 if you make a case. And obviously there's no Spurs because Spurs were knocked out by Fulham, I think it was, isn't it? So there's definitely going to be some big hitters that are going to be out. Let's put it that way. Let me just quickly go and read some comments. I'll come back to you, Tom. We'll ask some questions. Samir says Amrabat will play the African Cup of Nations. Obviously, we can expect him to be off a month. Plus, we're fast around done for 4 months in March. That's the reason why Manu sent this one. Maybe. I mean, I don't think that's a bit of a stretch. I think that's more, as Thomas said, due to the FFP constraints. And the reality is that I suspect that by then, from a squad point of view, Maynard will be back. You'd like to think that we'll be stronger potentially in that area, i.e. like Maynard, for example, will be back. So that will help us. Stephanie against knowing this board, they will get an acrobat for their circus. Heads must roll if they mess this deal up. Sinikimi says 11 p.m. deadline day. We get Amrabat to avoid with other signings. Rant over. Yeah, I mean, Stephanie, I like I said, I prepared a rant going into this, but was distracted because of the draw. But at the end of the day, the club is a joke. And at the end of the day, like a part of me is kind of like, yes, you can make an argument that why did we spend for me, I can understand the spending. There must have been some misconfusion. My theory is that part of this is Ten Hag was probably told that, and I hate bringing up this name again, but Ten Hag was probably told that Mason is probably going to come back into the squad. That is my theory. You combine that with the fact that, so with that, it's like, right, okay, well, I don't need to get too. If I'm Ten Hag, I'm saying, guys, I wouldn't need 2 strikers. I need a centre back. I need a midfielder. And if I need a new goalkeeper. And then if funding permits, I need another fullback. That's probably what he said. He was probably told, okay, we're going to probably integrate Mason back in, so we'll just get you one strike. Okay, fine. We'll get you a midfielder, but we need to sell. We need to sell first. So really, and then left back, the fullback, it is what it is. Centre back, so we'll try. We'll see what happens. But at the very least, what are your top positions? Okay, I need a midfielder and I need a striker, and that's always in my opinion, overspent on those two. I think the reality is that had we actually spent the first half of the transfer window actually working on getting players out, then I think that there would have been more clarity as to how much money Manchester United had to spend. Because quite frankly, Mason Mount wasn't going anywhere. I don't understand Højlund. Okay, fair enough. Maybe you can get that. Onana saying, but Mason Mount wasn't going anywhere. There was no rush for certainly for Mason Mount and maybe some of the others, because Onana and Højlund already kind of said they were prepared.
They'd only been funnily that you say that. Højlund and Onana had actually only been at Inter and Atalanta 1 year anyway.
Yeah.
So they had basically just integrated and settled in. I don't really think that they would have wanted to move unless they get big money offers from wherever to go to another big football club. Then again, you would go back to the same point, G. It comes down to the lateness in the window. And based upon how United have actually run the transfer window, it has been an absolute shocker, especially from a selling point of view. And they've made themselves look out to be fools. They you had quoted prices on the table for Scott McTominay and Harry Maguire, near enough £60 million a piece, for the pair of them, and you turned it down. And the Harry Maguire deal, again, in terms of the actual payment structure, what sort of a player I don't understand the thing with the Harry Maguire one anyway, because based upon what I was understood, he wants a nearly £10 million payoff. I've never heard this in, major football at a big football club like a Manchester United, where a player demands a payoff to leave. I've never ever heard of this in my life. Never. Even when you have a situation, say what you had with Aubameyang at Arsenal, he didn't kick up a fuss and say, "Oh, well, if you want me to leave and go elsewhere, you pay me X, Y, Z amount of what I would lose." Never happens. Never happens. And again, United, they clearly don't know their ass from their elbow when it comes to negotiating for anybody, whether it be a player or even one of their own players right now. They really do. They don't know.
Tom, I was told by certain United spaces that it was Murder Madness. As soon as we signed Mount, it was Murder Madness. Well, it's madness.
I don't know where this madhouse has come from. I think he's checked himself into mental health ward, if I'm honest.
I wouldn't disagree with that, to be honest. 14 likes. Yep, get those likes up, guys. Those are watching. I think we've got 30+ people watching. Let's get to 30 likes. That'd be great, guys. Amrabat, somebody else says again, Amrabat will play the afternoon. Oh, yeah, I've read that, yeah. David T says, they say they don't have the money now and they'll take up dividends in December. Yep. Why, like I said, I said at the end of the season, I was like, you need new owners. You need the cultural change of the club. It's as simple as that. People can say, okay, we could talk about the financial fair play. It's like, okay, so how are Chelsea able to get away with what they're able to get with then? Why can't United do what Chelsea are doing? Or at the very least, scout for younger talent. Why can't we do that? I don't understand. I'm not.
There is there is a hypothesis though. I talk about it's really to do with Ten Hag, really, and it's what I actually found out a couple of weeks ago that when Ten Hag was actually at Ajax, he worked with a football structure. You had Edwin van der Sar, you had Marc Overmars, and you had Erik Ten Hag.
Yeah,
manager, director of football, CEO. The partnership was that Edwin van der Sar gave the sign-off on what players Ajax brought in and recruited, but the manager and the director of football had to agree on the same player. And if they didn't, and if one of them didn't agree, so you could have a situation where Erik Ten Hag might say, "I want to sign Kylian Mbappe." If Marc Overmars isn't in agreement with him, they don't sign the player. Simple as that. Even if it's the most perfect player in the world for Erik ten Hag's system, if the football department don't in line with the manager, they don't get the player. It's as simple as that. That's what I was told regarding how they actually ran it with Ajax and Ten Hag. So he didn't have full operation and control over the players that were brought in. But you can see with those Ajax signings, they were club signings, but they also fitted the manager's principle. So really, it fulfills both of what Marc Overmars wanted and Erik ten Hag wanted, because they agreed on the player. Hence, then they actually signed the player for the amount of money that they do. Whereas you're in the situation with Ten Hag at Manchester United, I think it's become very clear that when Erik ten Hag actually walked in the door, he demanded control over the actual transfer policy at Manchester United, and he got it. And it was one of his main principles as to, well, if you don't give me control, I can go and work under a football structure. He had an offer from RB Leipzig at the time, where they have a proper footballing structure in place with the players that they recruit. And it was more of a sporting project, whereas United's more of the global project. It's Manchester United. That's the difference. But coming to United, he had to demand the control, and he's got it based upon the players that he's brought in. But Erik ten Hag's scouting policy, really, for the players that he's brought in, is either players he's familiar with, his fellow countrymen, or who he's worked with before. He's never signed one player, aside from, say, a Mason Mount, but he still knew the player from Vitesse. Aside from that, he's always bought players who he's known, he's been familiar with. Højlund's another one, maybe out of random, since he's been at United. Any other player, he's either worked with them before or he knows them from previous clubs. And the players you're linked with now, aside from if you got CUCURELLA through the door, he's worked with Amrabat. You had the links with Højbjerg, which, as far as I'm aware, is completely false anyway. He's worked with Højbjerg at Bayern Munich, for people that didn't know anyway. So he's got this affection and affiliation with players that he trusts effectively. And that is not how a football club should be run. The director of football in this case, John Murtough, like, if Erik ten Hag has the control over the signings, what is he even doing in the job then? That's what I would say anyway. What is he actually doing as the director of football? Because he doesn't negotiate the deals. We know that's Matt Hargreaves, who does that from Adidas, that they nicked from Adidas, to do the negotiations for them and take over Matt Judge's role. So what exactly does John Murtough do? We don't know. This is this is the situation. We don't. People even sit here and say it again now. What is Darren Fletcher's role? He's supposed to be the technical director. There's not a definitive role for these people, but all we know is that John Murtough is on the footballing side of things. That's all that we know. But it's ironically enough, and I'll take it back to this. You had Jim Lawler and you had Marcel Bout, who were two of Manchester United's most senior and experienced scouts from last summer. Last summer, Manchester United released those scouts at the same time that they're the most experienced ones that had give Manchester United information on players to target for our previous managers. But as soon as Erik ten Hag comes through the door and says that I want full control, what's the point in having scouts? There isn't any point in having them.
No.
And then it's coincidence or not that they then get rid of the two most experienced scouts that have gave United some of the players that they have in the squad today. For example, Jim Lawler was majorly influential in Manchester United, brought Victor Lindelof to the football club because he has a lot of connections within Portuguese football in the same way that he does within Spanish football and the recruitment side of that things. Marcel Bout, again, has the connections within English football and actually bringing players from Britain. So you take, for example, the Daniel James deal. He was majorly influential within that. He was majorly influential within the Harry Maguire deal, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. So, again, United, then the policy has now flipped to what Erik ten Hag wants. And I don't necessarily think it's smart, based upon it's not what he's worked with before. But he wanted this, so United have given him it. And if it doesn't work out, the only person really that you can blame is Erik ten Hag. He wanted this. He wanted complete control. He wanted everything. So he's been given it.
this is what I'm saying for, like, you know, I mean, obviously I'll see your comments, guys. I'll come back to them. So, but you know, I obviously I support any United manager that comes in, but like I said last season to this season, I have my reservations until evidence comes. And the reality, as you rightly said, is that I'm not just saying Eric Ten Hag has got his definitively first choice, because obviously, for example, we wanted Frankie De Jong, didn't get him. For example, he clearly wanted Harry Kane, didn't get him. So they're clearly preference, and I think he wanted Kim Min-jae as well. There clearly are preferences, but at the same time, you're right. You know, so that, like, it's not a coincidence that so many of Ten Hag's signings are players that, like, he's either that are players that he's worked with. You know, like I don't think I think if he'd gone Frankie De Jong, I don't think he would have gone Casemiro.
No, he wouldn't
Really,
have.
so exactly. So really and truly, aside from, I'm just trying to think, you know, who has he signed? I mean, he would have obviously knew about Malacia, Lisandro as well, Anthony as well. Like I said, Casemiro, you know, was the kind of sort of Frankie De Jong thing, because he would have preferred Frankie De Jong. What other signings is he made? I'm missing something. I'm missing Ericsson, obviously, but he worked with Ericsson as well. Onana worked with Onana as well. So I guess Mason Mount, maybe
Mason Mount and Højlund are the anomalies.
Are the anomalies.
But he knows he wanted Mason Mount when he was at Ajax, so he's familiar with that player. So really, Højlund's the only one out of the pack that has really been the one that he's never had any connection, affiliation to at all. And that's the difference. Long story short. But again, you come to the point with Ten Hag, he's made the decision that he wants his control over what players he brings into the football club. There's sometimes where you can give somebody too much power, where they're not thinking clearly and they're not looking at the direction, because you can look at it from many angles. Really being honest, bringing in someone like Rasmus Højlund isn't a typical Manchester United signing, because he's not a shirt seller, and the number 9 position at United would sell bucket loads of merchandise, £1 million fortunes, business deals, the lot. You replace Rasmus Højlund with a Victor Osimhen, a Harry Kane, United make, I would say, easily, maybe within a day, double what they will have done on any signings when they brought in Højlund, based upon merchandising. Because those profile of those players are a lot bigger in the pool than what Højlund's is right now, as we speak. So, effectively, United have gone down the road of that, well, if Eric Ten Hag, if we can't get him the players that he wants, like you said with Frankie De Jong and other players like that, if you can't get him the players that he wants, who does he want after them? And it's almost as if, well, you didn't get me the player that I originally wanted, so I'm going to play it safe, and I'm just going to get somebody that I know. I'm going to get somebody that I know, worked with them before, they'll do a job for me. But if it doesn't pay off, and it comes to a really sticky situation where United, you know, even in a world where maybe Eric Ten Hag isn't the manager, you have all these players that are, quote-unquote, players that Eric Ten Hag has worked with before. So any new manager coming in then, you look at that and you think, I'm working with another guy's players, basically. I'm working with his boys. These ain't my people. They've run through brick walls for him at Ajax, at Utrecht, at wherever he's been. They've run through brick walls for him. I know nothing about these players, but he knows everything because he's worked with them before. That's the only difference. And like you say, at a major football club, even at the most progressive club, I would say, in the last 5 to 6 years, Manchester City, Pep Guardiola does not have control over the transfer policy at Manchester City, and he's the best coach in the world right now. He does not have control over that. Tixi and Soriano of Manchester City's CEO, director department, and football scouting network, they control the players that Manchester City bring in. They put them on the table to Pep and they say, is this player up to standard? Is this who we should go for? Does this line with your style of play? Because we've identified this player. And if it does, they sign the player. And when it's Manchester City, they very rarely don't get the player. Unless they're not very sure on the player. And then they decide to pull out. Alexis Sanchez, I can name the Fred deal, the Jorginho deal. When they don't feel like something's right in that deal, they pull out and they go for a different player. And then the rest is history, and they buy a player that for probably less money that turns out to be even better than the one that they were originally going for. And you get to the point where you are now.
So you'll speak like you're literally speaking to the quiet man. Like obviously, like it's a disgrace, really. I don't think there's really much anything else to say to that. Like it's a disgrace, and it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. Let me quickly just read some some comments, and then we'll probably move on from Amrabat, unless you want to be depressed. Obviously, I'm refreshing Fabrizio's as we speak. He's actually, I think he's streaming on Kick now, Fabrizio now apparently. So if you want to ask him questions, I think he's doing a Q&A on Kick actually. So I might just start typing a wee little like when can you say Amrabat? Here we go. Let me have a quick look. Yeah. So let me quickly spend some with this comment. So yeah, there's 50 plus people watching, guys. You know, let's get to 40 likes at least. You know, let's get to 40 likes. We look weaker now than before the window opened. Midfield very light. Where it's still, if Casper not available, we're in big trouble as it stands. Not fair pinning hopes on Maino a bit soon. Well, I mean, I just checked Maino's actually Instagram. So when he did say, he was asked, I think, when is he going to be back on the pitch, and he said soon. So I hope soon means. So I suspect Mainu will be back. I'm predicting he'll be back
within weeks.
Yeah, within weeks after the international break. Basically, I think.
That's
what I would suspect with Mainu, which means that Arsenal and Brighton is going to be interesting. So hopefully we don't lose by to both of them. You know, but you're right. And at the end of the day, you know. Fred goes to, Tomley's still there. We look weaker, and obviously you have Iran injuries. You know, when the window closes, you look at the squad and you're thinking, how do Manchester United look weaker now than they were when we started this whole thing? You know, but that's the poor planning. Is the Forest bid for Amrabat true? Yeah. So that was the question actually. Yeah, just quickly, Tom. Was that Forest bid for? Because I won't be surprised because Forest are spending money on bidding for everybody. I think they've just signed. They're in the process of signing. I think Fabrizio's confirming Callum Hudson-Odoi. That's almost here we go. You know, interesting Ansu Fati to Brighton. That's something that took me very much by surprise, actually. So that'll be interesting because he's definitely a talent. And Brighton shows, at least from what I can see, is showing how you actually run a football club. Also transfers. So there you go. But anyway, yeah. Is there any truth was there any truth to that?
There was, yeah, and the truth behind it was that Nottingham Forest had actually offered to pay to Fiorentina, I think it was around about £90 million, and they were holding out for around about 21. They didn't get it, but Fiorentina were prepared to accept the offer based upon that they've been waiting for this United bid and it's not come yet.
Yeah.
But they've got an offer on the table and they know that the player wants to go. Anyway, from them, worst case scenario, he doesn't want to stay with them. Really, not in his heart, anyway. And then suddenly, you got the situation then where Forest comes to the table. They give you near to what you want. You're not going to haggle over maybe 2 million. You'd be stupid because you might just put the buyer off and think whatever. And Fiorentina had actually accepted the offer from Forest, but when Nottingham Forest made contact with Amrabat's camp. They said, we're waiting for Manchester United, just like every other club that's contacted Sofyan Amrabat's agents. Liverpool, Bayern Munich, PSG, all these clubs have contacted Sofyan Amrabat's camp and asked to be informed on the situation. They said, the situation is this. We won't be contacting you because the client and my client in Sofyan Amrabat wants to go to Manchester United. And they've given him an assurance that they will come for him when the time is right in the window. So... effectively, it's not a nice thing to say in football, and suddenly some people normally go back on it. It is, if you like, a gentleman's agreement.
Yeah. Well,
wait for us, and we'll come.
Similar to Caicedo to Chelsea when Liverpool.
Yeah. Similar in that case, but it's based upon his agency, not the actual club. The club haven't necessarily agreed to sell him, but they're prepared to sell him. That's the difference. So the Forest bid was true, but Forest got the same answer that every of the top European elite clubs that I've mentioned out of the three have been said. He's waiting for Manchester United, and he's had personal terms agreed since June. So look into that what you will. He doesn't want to go anywhere else. That's the difference. But again, if United don't start moving mad in the market and speeding up with this deal, you could have a situation where Amrabat might think, "You lied to me. You didn't come for me. You didn't think about me. Clearly, I wasn't your priority." And he might think, "Do you know what? I'm going to go to Nottingham Forest in spite of Manchester United, and I'm going to stick one in the top bins at the Stretford end." See really the reaction from that. And you never know. He might be a major factor in United getting top four. Maybe not. You don't know. Like, at the end of the day, players, they think in the mindset of it's about them until something goes wrong. And if it goes wrong, then they're out and they have the spite for the football club that it's gone wrong with. So, but at the end of the day, as far as I'm aware, Amrabat wants to come to Manchester United 100%. And he's been waiting, like you said, G, since June. So, a long time to wait.
Thanks for that, Chief. Sam has the same comment for Sam. Rob's evening, artist and Tom. Big of a chat. Yeah, shout out to Rob in the chat, man. Charlie says a shame that Cucurella was booed by. Yeah, that's a bit weird. Why would Cucurella be booed? I don't understand why. That doesn't make. I mean, just Chelsea fans for you. Makes zero sense. Like, it's like not the player is pushing to leave the club. Like, it's just he's not being played, and like the club are considering a loan. So why on earth they were booing him? I've got no idea. But Chelsea fans, enough said. I've got no doubt if Mount comes back, they'll boo him and throw him abuse, even though he came from the academy. That's just how Chelsea fans are, unfortunately. Onana, who hasn't represented Cameroon for time, has just decided to return recently. Højlund, who is injured, somehow has ended up in the Denmark squad. Complacency by the club. So I think two things about that, David T. When I read that story, it was more that the Cameroon, the management have announced that he would be part of the or they requested to recall or something on those lines. Like, we still don't have anything from the player, because like I think he posted an Instagram post in response to that, and it was quite cryptic. Let's put it that way. So I don't think it's. I could be wrong, but there is no official confirmation from Onana's side that he's going to be going back up with the Cameroonian team. I suspect what's probably happened is that at some point, some high management were trying to do something to him, and he was just like, nah. And now, because obviously they need him, and because he's gone to Manchester United, they're trying to sort of like butter up the bridges and say we're welcome, we'll set them back. But yeah, so we'll see about that. Like, so as far as I'm aware, Onana has not officially said he is going to be coming back to play for Cameroon. As far as Højlund, I think is in the Danish squad. So, but I mean, from reports, obviously it says that like he looks like he's going to be available for Arsenal, whether that's on the bench or something. So, I mean, he's going to be available. So, obviously, make of that what you will. With Varane gone, Maguire, no, it'll be Lindelof, I assume. It'll be Lindelof and Lizandra, I think they'll be coming. But yeah, obviously, if one of those players gets sent off or whatever, then yeah, we'll be back to Magaluf if that happens. We'll be back to Magaluf. Or maybe he might throw Scott McTominay in there. I don't know. Can you see us bringing a striker on loan, or you think midfielder, backup keeper, and left back at the most? I asked Tom this, but like Rob, I think you're expecting too much from this club, buddy. If I'm honest, and obviously I'm doing my deadline day stream on the Friday, I think it is. This is deadline 1st September. If I'm honest, if I'm optimistic, Manchester, the only two signings we're going to see are Amrabat and Cucurella, and that's it. That's, I think, I highly doubt that United are going to be going to do anything else. And that's me being optimistic. I will get those two things in. Realistic says that we'll probably get Amrabat and not a left back. And pessimist says we'll fumble both of those. You know, so, but I don't know what you think about that, Tom.
No, I'm in agreement with you. I think at the end of the day, the good thing for United is they're not going into at least the final day identifying what midfielder that they want or identifying what left back that they want. They've decided the players that they want. They've just got to get the deals over the line. That's the difference. Whereas some clubs, they go to deadline day, for example, and then when they've actually started like properly operating at say 6 a.m, all the way up until the midnight deadline or 11 o'clock deadline, sorry, like from 6 a.m, they don't actually know the player that they want. They identify then the player, say by the middle of the day, and then they're negotiating all afternoon and into the late hours at night to then get that player that they've identified. Whereas at least with United, they know the two players that they want. That's the thing. So I think it's a better thing that United know the players that they want. But again, getting the deals over the line is the more difficult situation. And for me, I think it's a lot easier to say that the Amrabat deal really is a lot easier to do than the CUCURELLA deal, based upon that you're not necessarily desperate for midfielders, but you would like another one. Whereas Chelsea know that they can pull your pants down for a loan fee for CUCURELLA because you haven't got a left back. You haven't got a left back for 2 months. So who are you going to play there when you play Arsenal at the weekend? Who are you going to play there when you play Brighton? After the international break, who are you going to play? You're not going to play anybody, are you? Well, unless you're going to change formation or you're going to have to overcompensate in some way. And I mean, even if you stuck Martinez at left back because he's played that role before, and then you're back to Maguire and Lindelof in the middle. Like, I don't really think United fans are going to be wanting this sort of situation to happen. So, at the end of the day, best case scenario, they get both. I guess even scenario, they get one of them. And worst case scenario, they get none of them. That's probably the best solution that I can say to United is that if they get both, everybody's going to be happy. I think if they get one of the two, probably a left back because they haven't actually got one right now. I think maybe takes a bit of the heat off the club. But if they don't end up getting either of them, it's going to be an absolute travesty. It will be an absolute shambles. And at the end of the day, United need to want to identify the players that the manager has clearly outlined that he wants. Amrabat's one of the players that he wants. CUCURELLA is one of the players that he said that he wants. Even though that one of his former players, again, as a left back, Nicolas Tagliafico, has been linked and mentioned as one of the options for left back, along with Sergio Reguilon. And I can't actually remember who the other Marcos Alonso was the other name, wasn't it?
God,
so, yeah, like you say, you've got all these names and all these players. At least United have identified the ones that they want. Me personally, I think they will end up getting both. Even if it's that you get a loan deal for both of them, the loan probably will just cover CUCURELLA for the full season, and then it'll just be straight. Look, a loan for CUCURELLA, you can get him on loan. It could work out. It could be brilliant. You could have the CUCURELLA from Brighton, and you might think, do you know what? There's some in here. Let's buy him. Or if it doesn't work out, you've not bought him. You're not obligated to buy him. You don't have an option to buy him, but you can always just send him back and just say, look, it didn't work, but you helped us out and you covered for us for 2 months. Thanks for your service. See you later. Whereas with the Amrabat deal, it's different because they want Amrabat gone in some capacity, either now or by a certain point. But they'll set the terms, and Manchester United will know them terms, and if they're prepared to meet them, then they're prepared to meet them. But if they want to negotiate and everything, then they're going to be working on this till the latter hours at the end of the window. So, and the one thing that I would say is make sure that you actually do a medical thoroughly on either of these two players, because the way that United have looked at it from a medical point of view, Mason Mount, one of your newest boys signings, is already injured.
Yep.
You've got a situation now where Højlund, you bought an injured player. You knew he was injured. You sent him to London for additional testing, and then you still decided to sign him anyway. And now you're in a situation where if you could bring in CUCURELLA, you don't know, he might have got a little knock from tonight or anything. He might pull the hammy or whatever. You don't know.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, from that, then you could look at that and think, well, what's actually going on? Really? I mean,
I mean,
United signed
I actually said
Gary O'Driscoll.
one of the things that I was actually concerned about Mason Mount actually was because because people were like, oh, he was in out of Chelsea. But I was like, this guy was injured quite a bit for Chelsea last season. I appreciate that at times that maybe he was supposed to wanted to leave, but still, I was like, he has been injured for a bit. Like, are we sure we're doing the right thing? You know, but it's like, no, back the man to trust. It was like, now 2 games in, his injuries out for 6 weeks. You know, so I generally don't, you know. But anyway, I'm going to save a lot of my thoughts about United transfers and players we brought in to the deadline day, because that's when I'm really going to, depending on what happens, and I already know what's happening. That's when I'm going to really kick off. So this is specifically about the transfer show. So let me just quickly continue with the comments. We might as well resign and get Rio and Scholes in the gym for a few weeks. Get a guard to run back. Bro, I mean, you know, I was like, I would have taken the Lukaku on a loan deal for additional striker support, but we can't even afford that. I don't think we can even probably afford getting someone like a Garlo. Showcat says 17 likes. Yep, I think we've got more now. But yeah, get those likes up. We've got, I think, 40 plus people. So yeah, let's get to 40 likes, guys. That'll be good. I don't blame anyone but Glaze and Woodward. They are the core of all the problems. I don't think I disagree with you there. It's definitely Murder Madness and needs a straight jacket. Brusher smash the like button. Says housekeeping non-existent United. Tied up first, remove the rubbish, clean, and then get your furniture in simples. Well, I assure you, Gret's not going to Leipzig now. Who's that? Who's linked with going to Leipzig? I don't know, David T. If we do bring anyone in on loan, will they be an option to? Or I mean, Ahmad maybe, and one injured players. If we do bring anyone in on loan, will there be an option to buy when the loan expires? I mean, my understanding was that I think Fiorentina would be happy with a loan deal for Amrabat if there was an obligation to buy.
But they want to set the terms. That's the difference.
Yeah, that makes sense. But big up Bath time in the chat. Oh my God, it's Tom. David T says, Burton and Fletcher check the levels of the grass. Come on, they have a job. Batham says, is there any truth to rumors, Tom, that Ten Hag has secretly been replaced with Jason Statham, and that's why midfield is so open?
If he has, he's got a funny accent now, hasn't he?
I know, and the English as well. You know,
the English has come on leaps.
Did Ten Hag have much to do with transfers at Ajax, or was it mainly Overmars and Van der Sar? Because his talent ID is very questionable. I mean, you kind of addressed that, didn't you?
Like you said, the director of football and the manager, the way that Ajax ran at that time was that if the director of football and the manager don't agree on the player, they don't sign that player. But if they then agree on another player, and it suits from a financial perspective from Van der Sar to sign off on it, they get the player. It's as simple as that. But there's I could name you anyway straight away from this. When Ten Hag and Overmars were working together at Ajax, they were looking for a number 9, and Ten Hag's preference was he wanted a physical side of a number 9, which they ended up getting that sort of profile with Haller. But Marc Overmars was more based upon that you had a young, say, Victor Osimhen at Lille at the time that you could have got. You had a lot of young youth strikers that were still playing at a maybe lower level in the Premier League that were still scoring, 15, 16 goals a season that you could have targeted. But they ended up not agreeing on the players that Overmars wanted, but then they come to an agreement on Haller based upon the profile of what Ten Hag wants, but also the scouting department's actual philosophy for the player that they were looking at matched. So then they came to an agreement on that player. Hence, they then signed Haller for, I think it was 40 million euros or 40 million pounds at the time. So clubs, it depends how they work and structure. The way that Ajax worked and run at that time, the reason being why they were probably so successful, because they had that partnership that worked. And it was a model, really, that for 3-4 years was sustainable, where they were competing in Europe year after year. Nobody blinked an eyelid or phased. So, again, you come to the point with United, John Murtough does not have that sort of agreement with Erik ten Hag. He doesn't. No, Erik ten Hag's the man who controls this transfer policy and structure. And if it doesn't need to be clear to say, you just look at the remit and the resume that I gave earlier on in the stream. Rewind to, I think it was about 20 minutes. I went for every single one of the players and the connection and the link that he has to that player. And the only anomaly is Rasmus Højlund. That's it.
Yeah.
But if he didn't have it, if he had it his own way, he wouldn't have even got Rasmus Højlund anyway. So there's his remit again.
Yeah. Yeah, he probably got what he wanted Kane, didn't he? That was his thing, so like the money. Ten Hag has put himself, players don't throw him under the bus, but this board will still do it. Amrabat signing, handling could be a watershed moment for this board. New ownership, new board. I mean, well, that's the thing. I mean, Ollie kind of sort of did that a little bit, but it still happens. So the results don't come, those don't come. Mark Goldbridge said he wished that we didn't sell De Gea, that we would have used the Onana money for Amrabat. I don't know about that. So I mean, you could say the same. Like, why did we? If the argument is we didn't need to sign De Gea, it's like, well, I would argue, why did we just sign Mason Mount? We didn't need to sign Mason Mount. Like, for me, a need is looking at the squad and you're like, where's an air that, like, for me, the priority was a striker. That was the 100% priority because our only striker was an injury-prone Anthony Martial, and Marcus Rashford doing a number 9 isn't a striker. So for me, a good striker was the priority, and we kind of sort of compromised on getting an up-and-coming development guy. You could make an argument we needed 2. That was the 100% priority. Then, okay, you could consider, well, what else? What other positions do we need? I would have said cover for Casemiro, because who's going to be the holding midfielder? And then you think about strengthening. Okay, get another centre back in. You can improve the goalkeeper. You can maybe get another attacking midfielder, all the rest of it. So, but priority-wise, it was the striker. So I just think that, like, okay, yeah, you can keep De Gea and use the money for Amrabat, but the thing is that, like, De Gea was on a I don't know its circumstances. So, but De Gea had run his contract down. The contract could have been he'd had a contract that he didn't sign, and on top of that, like, what were we going to do? We're going to give him it's like I don't understand the logic, because it's like he's obviously his opinion, but the thing is, it's like we couldn't have just given him a year deal. We would have had to give him 2, maybe even 3 years. And it's quite possible that he would have rejected and said, no, I want a 2 or 3 year deal. So it's not just as simple as saying that we should have kept De Gea because De Gea's contract expired. That we didn't sell him, his contract expired. Whereas we sold Fred, we sold those players. Did we really need to sell Fred? Yeah, mate, I'm not saying, but to bring him, I don't know. I don't see Mason Mount, in my opinion, as a need. I'm not saying we shouldn't have signed him, but that's my thoughts there.
Yeah, it wasn't a necessity in comparison to others.
Necessity, exactly. Necessity, in my opinion, was a striker. That was a 100%.
Yeah. And as soon as you knew the De Gea situation, a goalkeeper was a necessity, because we didn't have one. Exactly. In the same way, right now, a necessity, really, I think in a lot of United fans' minds, yeah, you can have the pipe dream about Amrabat. You don't have a left back right now.
We need a left back, exactly. So, and obviously Brandon Williams. Wait, is Brandon Williams still at the club?
No, he's gone on loan to Ipswich.
Yeah, he's gone on to Ipswich. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, okay, so we don't have that either. Jose bought players he worked with to do what? Managers do that. Yep, that's fair. To be honest, Klopp wanted Draxler over Salah. That's true.
He wanted Julian Brandt as well over Salah.
Brandt. So there you go. That's why you need people. That's why you need a director of football. That's people were hating on what's his name, Ragnick, because he wasn't getting results. Because apparently, but as I said at the time, I wanted Ragnick not because of his managerial news, but because of his talent ID. And here we are. A Prayers Solution says Man United board members are incompetent, simple as ABCD, because I don't see any top team taking any of them if a chance were to come them to leave. Tom Ten Hag also wanted, yeah. That's true. Yeah. Do we only get to? I think so. Let's have a look. Do the present players understand Ten Hag's system of play? We'll come back to that. We'll come back to the special. We'll address that. I can't wait for this takeover to be completed by Sheikh Jassim to sack each and every one of the competent board members and see what's going on. Well, obviously that's a delay and not that from prayers. I want that to happen too, but we'll see what happens. Any possible movement around midterm Ansu Fati was moved there. Not a chance, bath time. I don't even have to go to Tom about that. If you're talking about movement versus United, not a chance are we going for Matoma against Brighton. You know how much they're going to charge for Matoma for Brighton? For us, not a chance. It's like that's nice hope there, but like no way.
Funnily enough, Matoma has actually got quite a bit of interest in from Premier League clubs, but Manchester United isn't one of them. I know that Chelsea are interested in him and they are looking at him for potentially the future. Manchester City did look at him around about the time they were flirting with Elise and before they actually ended up deciding on Jeremy Doku. So big clubs have looked at Matoma as a player. And I think it'd be silly if you're not at least monitoring him, even if you don't end up making a move. And look, you could have it where a big offer could come from Saudi Arabia for, say, Salah, like it's been rumoured around Al Ittihad. If they put in a big offer for Salah, who to say that they don't use that money to then go and get Matoma?
True.
Like, and then suddenly you have a situation where, well, they've just got a younger forward, and they might, even if with the money that it would take to price Salah away from Liverpool, like the amount of money that they would probably get from that deal, they would probably be able to buy Matoma and still have money left over afterwards. So. Again, but Brighton aren't necessarily under pressure to sell players because they've sold their two big stars that they were looking to sell anyway in McAllister and Caicedo. So Tony Bloom's pulled an absolute wonder, if we're being honest, from that.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Don't disagree at all. Let's just quickly move on just briefly to just we kind of touched on it already. So, but obviously, you know. CUCURELLA, Manchester United loan deal. For some reason, the comments are not coming up on my stream for some reason, so I'm going to have to fix that. So if I'm not getting to some of your comments in the chat, I apologize. I will come back to them, guys. They're just not coming up in my for whatever reason. Yeah, it's stopped for some reason. Okay, but anyway, it's fine. So Tom, where are we with CUCURELLA essentially? Like, is this something that is likely to? Obviously, we're negotiating with Chelsea for a loan deal. I was hearing some figures like 8 or 9 million. I was like, you've got to be joking to pay for that. But you know, where are we with that?
The rumored figures that you're saying are true. I'm not going to deny it. It is true. Chelsea, originally they actually started with 10. There was a 10 million loan fee to have him for the full 12 months of the season, and you cover his wages. And you also pay any additional bonuses that he would have in his Chelsea contract. But you take the clauses that he has from Chelsea with you guys, provided that it is just a straight loan and there's no option to buy or anything like that. But in turn that with the CUCURELLA deal, the way that United are looking at it is they want a stopgap left back for 2 months. And in terms of a stopgap in football right now, who you can get on short notice in a window, CUCURELLA is the best deal that they've come up with. And if you're being fair,
I'm going to quickly just leave the stream and come back out because there's a comment, maybe a glitch thing having my StreamYard, so it'll literally be a minute.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah. No, I was saying anyway for the people in the chat that's listening is that with the CUCURELLA deal, really when you think about it, you have a player that has been at Chelsea for a season. And we can see that there hasn't been that progression, that step up from what we saw at Brighton. But you also had the player that was at Brighton. He was at Brighton for 1 season. And then he made the transition because there was a big money move that Brighton had from Chelsea of over £60 million. And then made the transition over. But if you're being fair, CUCURELLA is a 50-50 player. And he's almost a question mark player that I would say anyway. He's a question mark player based upon that. He's had a good season in English football and he's had a disastrous season in English football. But so did every single Chelsea player last season. So it's really hit or miss. If they end up getting him and you get the CUCURELLA from Brighton, people will look at this and think it's a mastermind of a deal. They really will, based upon you've got probably a better left back on loan from Chelsea than what they've actually maybe got right now in Ben Chilwell, arguably. And clearly, I think it's a case of that Pochettino prefers Chilwell over Cucurella. And they've still got players that could cover the left-back position if need be. So they're basically stacked in the area. They don't necessarily need him, and he is surplus to requirements. If you have the option of coming to Manchester United for a year where you'll get the same wages, the only difference is you'll be in a different city and a different team with a different manager, and you'll be playing Champions League football. It's a win-win. It really is a win-win. So with the Cucurella deal, they demanded around about a £10 million loan fee for the full term, and you cover his wages. They've come to a more reasonable thing, like they did with the Mason Mount thing. They put a ridiculous price on him, £80 million package, and United worked them down bit by bit. I think they will look at it from the perspective of if they got half of that loan fee, like if they got 5, I think they would be happy, Chelsea. And I think realistically, United, with the short notice and the quality of the player that they're getting on short notice, I think they would pay the 5, based upon that there's worse left backs out there that they can get for less money. And the thing that United were criticised for in January was they got players on loan, but they got them on that cheap of a loan. There was no quality attached to that player. Wout Weghorst is the best example.
Yeah.
A straight £2 million loan, but the quality in the player was shocking.
Yeah.
Whereas you take somebody like a Cucurella, who's even a left back, who has a better first touch than Wout Weghorst as a number 9. So there is a quality there, and I think Cucurella is the kind of profile that fits
even
how
a Gala
Ten Hag
was
wants.
better, man. I don't even understand. Like people are going on a Gala not being good enough, and somehow we've got Weghorst, man. I don't like.
Well, again,
so,
you know, but for the players, again, you know, loan agreements and stuff. The problem with United is there's never been that progression. When I look at it from what United did was they got Sabitzer and they got in Weghorst on loan in January, and they started doing the analysis and the scouting to buy at least one midfielder and a number 9. They've got both of them. Realistically, they got Højlund, who's the number 9 that they've gone for, and then they've also ended up going in and getting Mason Mount. But they want more based upon they've sold more midfielders. But the thing United have always been, again, criticised for, again, taking it probably back to the Cucurella thing, is if they don't get the better end of the deal for this and the player doesn't work out, they will look like absolute amateurs. But if they get a seismic loan fee for a player who might only play 2 months for you and then becomes surplus to requirements, it's not a bad deal to do. But it depends on how the player actually does. That is going to impact this, because if the player does absolutely amazing, people are going to call it Myrto Madness, as you phrased it earlier. They're going to call it Myrto Madness at the last hour. But if it doesn't work out, they are going to call it a madness, but we know for what reason and which way that's going to be spun. So it's going to be a madness in terms of perfection, or it's going to be a madness in terms of, as you put in your title, chaos. So, again, you're in the mixer as to United clearly want the player. Chelsea are going to play in the heartstring of, you don't have a left-back, guys. You don't have a dog in this particular fight at all. Because you don't have a left-back. And you go into the team that pushed Manchester City to the end of the brink last season, and on that side you've got the young player of the year, PFA Young Player of the Year, Bukayo Saka, playing on that side. Good luck to anybody who's got to fill that role. That's all I'll say.
Yeah,
you'll have Diogo Dalot on smoke.
Yeah,
Dalot, if it ends up being him.
It's going to be Dalot.
Even if you stuck Martinez out there on the left back, I'd worry for him. I would worry for him.
Dalot is getting cooked, man. It's going to be bad. Let me quickly read some comments. Isn't deadline day tomorrow? No, it's Friday, September 11 p.m. That's the deadline. Shout out to Raul. Great show. Thanks, buddy. Always appreciate it. 35 likes, man. Yes, let's get those likes up. Hopefully we'll be close to 40 now. So I think we're above 40 likes. Great, guys. Thank you so much. Let's even get to 50 even. Morris Romano spoke about this Turkish goal being almost done. Any news? Yeah, I think it's. I mean, Tom, is that because obviously that will be our third choice or second choice because obviously Tom Heaton is injured, so that's something that doesn't get talked about. Like if Onana for whatever reason gets a red card, who basically plays in goal? Interesting.
Well, it's not. It's primarily not based upon if he gets a red card. It's based upon that if he ends up getting back reintegrated back in with the Cameroon national team for AFCON.
Yeah, exactly.
So then he would be missing for at least 4 to potentially 6 weeks of action, which in the height of that sort of period of a season, obviously you can't disclose it because AFCON's a brilliant, tournament and competition for the African nations. And, it doesn't resonate that it is in the middle of a season. That's just how it is. But other players are losing some of their best players to the AFCON.
Yeah, Salah obviously will be
Salah will be gone, at the end of the day, you've had big players
Newcastle's
that'll go
as well.
Yeah. You've got big players that are going to end up going, but again, if United structure it right, they could end up having it, and it really comes down to the probability of luck. If Cameroon have a good tournament, he'll be staying there for a lot longer. If he doesn't, he could be back within 3 weeks. So, worst case scenario, he goes all the way and wins the whole thing, which you'll be happy for him to do. Best case scenario, maybe for United fans, is they pull an absolute stinker, and he gets on the plane straight back to Manchester after 3 weeks. First 3 games of the tournament, group stage gone, bang, see you later, on the plane back home. But with the Turkish goalkeeper, it wasn't based upon Onana and the AFCON thing, although that's been put into the mix. It's been more primarily based upon that if Dean Henderson goes, we have to get another, and this is the best guy that they've come up with. And again, I'm going to actually take it back. Erik ten Hag had actually scouted this guy when he was at Ajax, around about the time when Andre Onana had the drugs ban, and they were looking for another goalkeeper. They had this guy in the list again, so we know he's familiar. It's a kind of Mason Mount situation. He's familiar with the player, essentially, and it's funnily enough that United are targeting this player. So
surprise. Rajit says we will get him on loan. I think it's the Amrabat will be a great smart signing. Big up João Palhinha going to Palhinha going to Bayern Munich. Fair, that's a good signing. Lucky says I spoke. I know it's done. People, hopefully you're right, Lucky Singh. Hopefully you're right. Ilya says Brighton sign Ansu Fati from Barcelona. Good. United even can't get Amrabat on a loan. Well, there you go. It's a good sign for Brighton. Mega says Matoma's your typical Manchester United winger, i.e. Giggs, Beck's best type. Well, but are we going to go for him? No, we're not. Rob says, thanks for reading my comments out. I agree, guys. Maybe 2 marks on loan if we're lucky, but say if we do sign CUCURELLA, if he is great, could we buy him at the end of the season? I don't think Chelsea would be give because I mean, obviously, you also have to understand like Chelsea, because obviously they let Lewis Hall go on loan, I think, to Newcastle, and they've only really got Chilwell, and I don't know, they've got someone else, but I know that Chilwell is potentially injury prone. So I think if Chilwell goes, I don't know who their backup left back is. I assume it's another academy product.
Milan Sarr, I think it is. Who Pochettino didn't actually know who he was.
Yeah, I know. So I don't think that it'll be with a low obligation to buy. I think because CUCURELLA is still quite a new. They invested what 60.
They broke. He was, I think, at the time. I think he still is now, to be fair, or it might be behind Lucas Hernandez when Bayern bought him. Like, I think they bought him for 62 million, and I think the Hernandez one went for 68. So he was probably the second most expensive left back in world football. But to spend over 60 million pounds on a left back, it doesn't happen. Well, unless you Pep Guardiola at Manchester City, you can spend 200 million pound on 4. So.
Yeah. But so that's why I think I would be, if we're buying it so soon, if we're going to buy him, just trust that if Chelsea want to sell him, they want to make their money back. And there's no way Manchester United are going to spend any more than 60 million on Cucurella. That's just not happening. Hence the sort of extortionate, you shouldn't be paying 8 or 9 million for a loan fee till possibly January for Cucurella. What for? I even thought the Atletico Madrid loan move that they did for João Felix in January for
that was for 6 months. Yeah,
6 months was extortionate. So we should be there either. Let's quickly move on from Cucurella and just quickly talk about where's it gone? Sorry. Well, basically, we'll talk about obviously Mengi, Maguire, and the sort of the Van der Beek and the sort of like outgoings. So do you have what's your information on basically United's outgoings? Basically, Thomas, is the question.
Well, it's looking like that. Tieram Mengi is going to go to Luton, and really, it was a surprising one, really, because he'd had a lot of interest from the Championship, but I think based upon him, he's not going to be a starter for Manchester United, put it that way, but he values himself better than the Championship because he's been there before. Okay. That's the thing that I think you can probably say from Mengi's perspective. And he's had Luton, who are the newcomers and who are the team that's supposed to go down, and obviously the other come in for him. And it depends really upon it because it looks like that he will go there. But again, you've got to agree the terms. You're a young player, but you're at a big established football club like Manchester United. You're going to demand more than maybe what they might get to buy. Or maybe, I don't know, you could say if they wanted to try and sign, Trevor Chalobah from Chelsea. Like, there's a situation where a more progressive player than him, but based upon the profile, the age and everything, it's looking like that it will happen based upon he wants to play football. And he would be playing in the Premier League, at least for this season. True. So he would have some experience under his belt. And who knows, he might do really well at Luton. They could still go down, but a club might come back in for him next summer. Or a club who's coming up, maybe a Southampton or whoever comes back up to the Premier League, they might need a centre-back. Right, Tieram Mengi had a brilliant season at Luton. Let's do a deal. And let's try and get him. But I'd be shocked if United don't try and put some sort of a clause in there, like they have done with a lot of the young players that they've sold this summer, the Iqbal deal and the Emiran and deals like this. I'd be shocked if they don't end up putting some sort of buyback clause or a sell-on clause with a quarter percentage, I don't know, 15, 20% in there of the proceeds of a sale. And if they don't have if they don't have at least a clause in there, I'd be shocked. And I guess moving on with the Maguire thing, again, we discussed it earlier around about the payoff. He wanted around about a £9 million payoff, which is absolutely ridiculous. I've never known any football club be held to ransom by a player that is to leave their club and say that I want a payoff, otherwise I'm not going to fulfill the move. Like, at the end of the day, be thankful that you've actually been given the money and the contract that you've had at Manchester United. And to say that from majority of last season, you were surplus to requirements, I would look at this from maybe Gareth Southgate's perspective, and I would look at it and I'd think, is Harry Maguire actually serious about playing at the high level of football? Is he serious about winning things? Does he have a winner's mentality? Because he isn't going to win at Manchester United. He's not. He's not going to play an influential role in winning. Put it that way.
A reporter to be believed, it looks like Southgate might be announcing him to the squad. So maybe that
he could announce him to the squad for now. But when it comes down to it, when he has to pick that Euro squad at the end of the season, if you have Marc at Crystal Palace, who has an absolute blinder of a season, or Tomori still blows it out there at AC Milan, it's going to be hard to ignore these players to take his place.
I hope you're right, Tom.
And that's the one thing. There's always a but, and he does have his favourites. And look, you can say the same situation for Jordan Henderson going out to Saudi Arabia. The quality of the league, but I know the player. I know what he can bring. I know the character, the leadership's there. I know what he can bring. That's the difference. And I think Gareth Southgate's more about the player and the personality than actual, what they bring to the group or the squad. It's more about having characters and individuals. And yet England have never been successful having some of the brilliant young players of this world. The Wayne Rooney's, the Paul Gascoigne's, the whatever, superstar England players. But the one thing that we can always say with England and especially Southgate is that he does have his select few players that he's gone through thick and thin with. And he has defended them and they're still here now. Phil Foden had the situation with Mason Greenwood out in Iceland and everything, and that sort of, breaching the COVID guidelines and the rules. Phil Foden always gets picked for the England squad. So situations change, and you have to look at it, I guess, from that perspective with United and Harry Maguire. I think, really, from his perspective, he's given up the ghost because he isn't going to break into this team, and the only time that he will ever play is like with the situation that they're in now. If he's the only other option that they can fall back on. If you have a situation where Varane's out, Martinez is out, or they have to cover a different position, and you have a situation in there where you have to play, Luke Shaw's out, for example, to cover left-sided centre-back, Harry Maguire's going to have to play because you don't have anybody else. And again, you get to the situation with Ten Hag. He wanted a new centre-back coming into this window.
He did.
But as soon as priority number one went out the window and the De Gea situation really changed the whole policy, the whole policy flipped on its head because they had to prioritise a goalkeeper over a centre-back. The primary idea for this window was that they wanted striker, midfielder, centre-back. They got two of them, two out of the three, but then they had to change the third one based upon that they had no goalkeeper because David De Gea, they couldn't agree the terms of a contract with. So you come to it with Maguire, if he'd have got the £9 million payoff, he wouldn't be a United player right now. I'll say that for a fact. But United, the stance that they've taken is we won't be held to ransom for a player we believe shouldn't be earning of a payoff anyway because he's not really had that much achievement with United. And to even demand a payoff at any level of football is ridiculous. And this is what I mean. I've never heard of it where players get paid off super money just to go elsewhere. It is absolutely ridiculous. It's almost as if you're holding them at gunpoint. And if you don't let me go, all right, well, screw you, I'll just stay and I'll sit in the stands. Maybe you could resonate with, say, Gareth Bale and Real Madrid, but again, different situation, different player. And obviously, we move on to Van der Beek. It was very likely at the time with Sociedad that move was going to materialise and everything. And as far as I'm aware, the Sociedad, it has stalled. But again,
I'm hearing some like latent Oriental stuff. Are we really? Is that where we're going, or was that just bogus?
Wait, with who? Sorry.
What, Van der Beek?
Oh, that was bogus.
That's bogus. Okay, cool. Okay. I'm seeing that.
Van der Beek going to Leighton Orient.
Guys, come on, man. Like, I mean, no, it's difficult, but really, like, come on, you can't like that.
If you ask Donny Van der Beek where Leighton Orient is, he might not even think it's in England, let alone London.
This guy was 20th on a Ballon d'Or nomination list, and now you're saying he's been linked with Leighton Orient, man. That's a massive crash.
That's a low point.
Yeah. So, but so go on.
Yeah. But again, like the way United structured it to get a deal done for Van der Beek was, if a club wanted to come in and buy him outright, they had a price in mind, but they haven't had that significant interest to do that. But they've had clubs that will take him on loan and no option to buy, no obligation. They've had clubs that will give you an option, but they want an obligation, and no club's prepared to give them that. So essentially, they're stuck with the player. But if it doesn't end up working out, and you can't find a club for Van der Beek before the end of the window, you could still have a situation where United maybe don't get Sofyan Amrabat, as I say, in a worst case scenario, but you still have Donny Van der Beek there as a midfield cover, along with Eriksen, along with Mount, if you want to rotate the players around, Well, really, you could say you have 3 cover players for midfield. That's Ericsson, Van der Beek, and Kobe Mino. And maybe Hannibal if he doesn't go out on loan to a Sevilla or somewhere like that, where it's being linked likely that he might go to. So you kind of have 4 players that can really do a job for you and cover for you. But the drop off in quality obviously is there when you go from, say, Ericsson to then Van der Beek to then 2 unproven youngsters in Kobe Mino and Hannibal. So again, quality over, I guess, quantity of the squad. There isn't that chart there, and that's the problem with United. They have quality. You could say for whatever you want to say. United have a quality starting 11 or the bones of it. They have a quality spine of the team from striker to maybe
1 minute
goalkeeper.
again, Tom. Sorry, I'll be back in again. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. They have the spine from the striker to the goalkeeper, but aside from that, they don't necessarily have anything really beknownst to that. And after that point, really, when you go from the spine of the team, United then structure-wise, you could argue that they might have a decent starting 11, but in terms of the actual squad depth of the whole team, it's shocking. Like, there wasn't that squad depth last year, and hence they had to get 2 emergency loans, Sabitzer and Wout Weghorst. Whereas now, at least, you have the options coming off the bench. That's the one thing United didn't have last summer, was options. Whereas now that they do. So, again, situations can change, and with Donny van der Beek, it's probably the best argument that United have to do some sort of a deal. And if it's not what they wanted originally, they're going to have to do something anyway. And as far as I'm aware, with Van der Beek personally, he wants to play football. So if he wants to play football, he's going to have to do it elsewhere from Manchester United because he's not starting anyway in the manager's plans.
Sorry, I'm on mute. I've been speaking. Sorry, Tom. Are they? Thanks, Tom. Are there any other potential outgoings, like at all, that we're thinking about? Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Tom? Are you there? Can everyone hear me in the chat? Let me just check. Oh, sorry. Yep, I think Thomas. Let me just sort this out. And okay, Tom, you there? Which one has happened? Or has he got a connection issue? Let's try that. You there, Tom? Okay, he may have a connection issue. So, Tom, if you can hear me, just maybe log off or come back in and come out again, whichever one works. So I'll just bring Tom out, and I'll just change that. To be honest, so yeah, so hopefully we'll obviously get Tom back. But yeah, Champions League draw. Champions League draw. That's pretty much most of the transfer news done. So God willing, rounding up the show. Let me try this one last time for Tom. You there, Tom? Okay, fine. Maybe we'll come back in and come back out. Okay. Right. So yeah, so Champions League draw. So what I thought would be a good idea, obviously, Champions League watch along. Manchester are back in the Champions League, whether win or not. Well, you know, I'll leave that with you guys in terms of Manchester United winning the Champions League. It is what it is. But I thought what would be a good idea would be nice to just have like just a prelude draw, basically. Let's have a look. Just think. 2 seconds. I'm just having a few technical things, which is typical. Connect back to the stream and it kicked me off. I'm just going to send the link. I'm just going to resend the link to Tom. Something StreamYard is bugging now for some reason because like It's not letting me display comments from YouTube, but now Tom's sort of so I don't know. But we're going to begin to round up the show anyway. So, but apologies. StreamYard is just, and yeah, FYI, I'm gonna be changing things maybe the next month or so, because yeah, it's StreamYard has been bugging recently. So we'll hopefully try and get Tom back on. If not, then we'll crack on. So anyway, here is this. So I'm gonna just quickly share this screen. Okay. And hopefully everyone can see that now. So this is a nice, what I would call like a UEFA Champions League draw simulator. Obviously, the Champions League draw is happening tomorrow. We're going to be live from 5 p.m. BST for the draw. Make sure you tune in. We want to see, we want to get United want to get a good draw. In fact, guys, let me know in the chat, guys. Like what would you like? Looking at this, guys. What would you like? We'll just quickly obviously just go through the groups, and then we'll do a kind of a prelim draw, as it were, which should be pretty good. So pot one, you got Barca, Bayern, Benfica, Feyenoord, City, Napoli, PSG, and Sevilla. Now, if I'm perfectly honest, I would say, because we can't obviously face Manchester City, I don't want to get cocky here, and I'm not cocky here, but like there isn't anyone in every other team aside from City in this squad for me has weaknesses. Okay, I mean, Sevilla, we tend to beat Sevilla in the Champions League and not in the Europa League for some reason. Napoli, obviously, are still strong, so, but again, have their weaknesses. PSG, no Neymar, no Mbappe. Sorry, no Neymar, no Messi. They've got Mbappe still, obviously, but again, we've beaten PSG in the Champions League before. Feyenoord, Ten Hag, should be aware. Fine if we get them. There you go. Benfica and obviously Bayern Munich are going through. So a lot of these clubs are going through transitions. I wouldn't really be opposed to. We can't obviously face City, so I wouldn't really be opposed to getting even Barcelona. We beat Barcelona twice last season. I bet Fred was playing. I bet Fred was there. So all of what I'm saying is contingent on us on the transfer window. Sofyan Amrabat, Kobe Mainoo being available, etc. So I'm hoping that by the time we get to here, the Champions League, that we'll have Kobe Mainoo and Amrabat available in midfield. That's what I'm basing this sort of prediction on. If we don't have those two, then I'm starting to get worried. Pot two, obviously, United are in there. Arsenal in there as well. Atleti, Dortmund, Inter, Porto, Leipzig, Real Madrid. Real Madrid would have been the other team I feel we can't obviously play them. Then pot three. Yeah, I know. If I think Roger says Mainoo not ready, mate. Yeah, Mainoo is still part of the first team. He's, according to his Instagram, he's gonna. I think it's weeks. So I suspect Mainoo will be back after the international break. Because remember, the Champions League first game is after the international break. So I think Mainoo will be available by the international break. So yeah, that's what I think. Sorry, just a second. Everyone. Yeah, so that's Mainoo. Okay, so pot three. Milan, I think that's Copenhagen, Lazio, Salzburg, PSV Eindhoven, Red Star, Shakhtar, Sporting. I think if I'm United, I'm probably want to avoid PSV, AC, obviously, and Salzburg, and maybe throw in Shakhtar because they can be unpredictable. So these four. And then pot four, Celtic, Galatasaray, Lens, Newcastle, we can't obviously get, Real Sociedad, Royal Antwerp, Union Berlin, and Young Boys. So yeah, let me know in the comments what are the who do you want, who do you don't want? Let me know in the comments, and we'll then get this draw done, this prelude draw done, and then we'll basically we'll head off. I think we'll head off. So let me know in the comments, who do you want? Who would you like to see? And then we'll get this draw. So let's get this draw going on. Actually, let's start. And maybe, who knows? Maybe my pot might be correct. So let's start the draw. So let's go. Let's go. There you go. Oh, Manchester United in Group 2. Okay, let's have a look. Okay. Okay. Look at this. Let's look at this. Okay. Right. So that is my UCL predicted draw right there. Shout out to drawsimulator.com. If I'm honest, guys, like, wait a minute, hold on a minute. Can we get that though? Or has this been bugged? Because like Lens, Napoli were in pot one. Yeah, yes, it's correct. Yeah. If we're getting this, I'm happy. Lens, FC Copenhagen, Napoli United, I'm happy with this group. If this is the group, I'm happy with this group, man. I'm happy for this group. Easy group for United, typical, says Slacking. I mean, if we get this group like this, I'm happy. Newcastle, even looking at their group, they've got something like that, like Newcastle, Salzburg, Sevilla, Porto, happy days. You know, City. You know, I mean, even though young Real Madrid is in there, they've got young boys in Sporting, so it's like they'll be fine. And then Arsenal for me, if this is true, are the team that got screwed. You've got Bayern, PSV, Galatasaray. That would be hard. Barca, you'd expect in a group like this that they would at least top the group with Celtic, and come on. So looking at these groups, to be honest, like if it is like this, I can already see. I mean, maybe this group, PSG, and Atletico, interesting, but you can already see where certain teams you'd expect to sort of leave progress, etc. So, but if we get something like this, guys, I'm happy. I am generally happy we get something like this. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Make sure you remember to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter, UATNAX, and smash the notification button. Latest Manchester news. I see Mo saying Lazio, and Antwerp, please. That's it. Well, I don't think we can get are Antwerp Dutch? I thought Antwerp might be Dutch. We might not be able to get them, but I could be wrong. So maybe we might be able to get them. But yeah. Thanks everyone who's tuning in for that. Really appreciate it. Have a nice day, everyone, and cheers. Peace.